Horror movies and iconic kills go hand in hand. It's understandable, therefore, that moviegoers were pretty pissed when not only a beloved character died, but when they didn't even get to see it. I'm Tilly from What Culture Horror, and these are 9 insulting ways characters were killed off between horror movies. Number 9. Brahmss' fate is retconned. The Boy 2. The Boy 2016 was seen to be a run-of-the-mill haunted doll horror flick, but the surprise twist at the end of the film made it far more memorable and interesting. Rather than the naughty soul of the supposedly deceased Brahmss Heelscher being the cause of all the supernatural shenanigans, Brahmss himself was actually revealed to be alive, kicking, and pretty damn evil. Given the success of the first film, a sequel was quickly put into production and released in 2020. It was not good. The ending of the first film showed Brahmss to still be alive, but the sequel completely retconned this and placed the spooky doll first and foremost. The question arose, what happened to Brahmss the bloke? The reason this is insulting is that it's never explained. Is Brahmss actually dead? Does his soul now haunt the problematic porcelain person? Who cares? The movie certainly doesn't. It's hinted Brahmss died from his injuries, but we would at least like to have seen a glimpse of this. Plus, it's a pretty lame way for a villain to kick the bucket. Then there's the claim in the film that the doll causes its victims to become insane, which is not only a very stale trope, but one that again we don't actually see happen to Brahmss either in the first film or this disappointing follow-up. It's a real shame that such a unique premise was eschewed in this careless way, with audiences feeling confused and frustrated that none of the first film really carried into the sequel. Number 8. Elizabeth Shaw becomes a human experiment. Alien Covenant. Listen, I actually kind of liked Prometheus. I know it wasn't perfect, but it did something different with the Alien saga, and I respect that. It introduced some truly fascinating characters, primarily the determined Elizabeth Shaw and the ice-cold David. By the time Alien Covenant rolled around, fans were hoping that there'd be more xenomorph action and less philosophy. They got the former at least. What they didn't get was what could have been a truly gnarly death scene. The crew of the Covenant are initially told that Shaw perished as the giant space banana crashed into the home planet of the engineers. However, as Michael Fassbender's David reveals he's far more malicious than we thought, he reveals that he used Shaw as a human experiment as he tried to create the perfect organism. In a brief shot, we see Shaw's corpse, her chest and torso burst open. Imagine how amazing it would have been to have seen Shaw go through the torturous process. I'm sounding a tad sadistic here, but I think many Alien fans would agree that a chest bursting in action is far better than the aftermath. Shaw's character was arguably one of the best parts of Prometheus, so to not actually see the death of such a character in what could have been a fantastic moment, it literally would have been the first chest burst in the Alien universe for crying out loud, leaves a very bad taste in your mouth. Number 7. Alex Browning is hit by a brick. Final Destination 2. For a character who had managed to defeat death for a whole movie, one would assume that his own departure from the land of the living would be representative of this feat. Given how the kills in the Final Destination franchise have been as varied as they have been dramatic, the death of Final Destination's protagonist Alex Browning was, well, terrible. Having survived that plane crash, a falling neon sign, and electrocution, you'd be safe to assume that it would take something really impressive, gory, and over the top to take out Browning. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it was nothing like that at all. Alex, having faced off death's most calculated attacks, is killed by a falling brick. Yep, a brick. It could be worse, as the original plan was to have Alex killed by a ceiling fan. Silver linings, folks. What makes it even more crap is that we don't even see his death. Instead, the audience is merely told by Clea Rivers, who had been institutionalized due to the trauma she went through in the first film, of Alex's fate. Final Destination, like the Saw franchise, is renowned for over-the-top kills. Live up to that expectation, damn it, movie! Number 6. Dr. Chilton vanishes without a trace. Hannibal. By this point, there is little point singing the praises of The Silence of the Lambs. Terrifying, tense, twisted, and an overall masterpiece, it was tough to continue the cinematic legacy of Hannibal Lecter. The film ended with the iconic line, "I'm having an old friend for dinner," with the friend in question being Dr. Frederick Chilton. Chilton was the inept head of the Baltimore State Hospital for the Criminally Insane, who was beyond icky to Clarice Starling and kinda earned his fate. Well, if we actually knew a bit more of his fate, we would be able to confidently say this. He did appear in the prequel Red Dragon and was equally annoying, but when the direct sequel Hannibal came out in 2001, there was no sign of him, aside from whispers of his disappearance in Jamaica. Lecter swore revenge on Chilton, and the sequel would have been the perfect opportunity for his character to come to a bloody end. Although, seeing what Chilton went through during the NBC Hannibal TV show, maybe it's for the best that we didn't see what Hopkins' Lecter had in store for him. Number 5. Wendy Torrance mysteriously dies. Dr. Sleep. Both Wendy Torrance and Shelley Duvall went through hell under the roof of the Overlook Hotel. She, of all people, deserved a happy ending, but as Mike Flanagan's fantastic sequels showed, this wasn't the case. Well, he sort of showed us. In Dr. Sleep, Wendy does appear at the beginning of the 2019 movie, traumatised and weakened by her experience. Understandable. In the novel by Stephen King, Wendy died of lung cancer in 1999, but Flanagan keeps a bit more ambiguity. Whilst this is appropriate for the mysterious tone of Dr. Sleep, it is a huge shame that such an incredible and iconic character is not given the proper ending she deserves. 2019's Dr. Sleep merely mentioned that she died when Danny was very young, as he explains to a familiar-looking father figure. Wendy Torrance featured in a novel, a film, a miniseries, and even an opera, having her die off screen and in a way that technically falls between the two adventures of Danny Torrance, if you can call his horrifying encounters with the supernatural adventures. It truly is a shame she didn't get the end she deserved. Number 4. Sally Hardesty died in hospital. Leatherface, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. Another character who had a pretty terrible time was Sally Hardesty, the final girl of the 1974 legend of the genre, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Having survived Leatherface and the Sawyers in possibly the worst dinner-time gathering ever, and disappearing into the sunrise with a maniacal grin on her face, viewers hoped that there might be at least some mention of what happened to her in the years that followed. What they got was one line. One singular line in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3's title crawl. Not even a cameo or a flashback. All it says is that she died in 1977 in a healthcare facility. Not only was this insulting given the legacy of TCM by the time the third installment was released, but also seeing how she was absent from the darkly comic Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Her absence made the heart grow fonder for her, and to simply be met with this anticlimactic factual statement was something that not even Viggo Mortensen could save. Number 3. Martin Brody is so scared of sharks, he dies. Jaws: The Revenge. I'm sure it doesn't come as a surprise to many, but the Jaws sequels lack the bite, of the original worldwide phenomenon. From sharks holding grudges to attempts at 3D, they certainly aren't as scary or even as good as the first movie. To soften the blow, Roy Scheider still starred as the reliable Chief Martin Brody in Jaws 2, even though he was absent from the third installment. Perhaps Jaws: The Revenge would bring him back? Surprise! He died of a heart attack. His death took place at some point between Jaws 3D and Jaws: The Revenge, happening off-screen and denying fans and casual viewers the chance to see the hero one last time. To make it worse, his heart attack was caused by fear of the shark. Yes, Brody was pretty traumatised, but the way it's phrased is so overdramatic and just makes his death seem a bit pathetic, really. Number 2. Hicks and Newt don't make it out of cryosleep. Alien 3. 2 for the price of 1 isn't always the best deal. Aliens, released in 1986, was quite possibly the best possible sequel imaginable for the original sci-fi horror flick. Introduced to a whole array of brilliant characters, audiences soon became as attached as Ripley did to Newt, a stranded and alone 12-year-old girl. Ripley painstakingly ensured the safety of the girl, along with Corporal Hicks, which made up most of the emotional core of Aliens. Alien 3, however, had other ideas. Within 10 minutes of the film, Hicks and Newt are both found dead in their cryo chambers. Ripley didn't even get to say goodbye to her friend and adopted daughter figure, which audiences did not react kindly to. Rather than seeing it as an emotional tragedy, many felt robbed of the character development that could have strengthened the bond between the 3 xenomorph survivors. A terrible and disheartening end to characters who were already beloved and could have gone on to do so much more in the franchise. I guess that the rest of the film being so terrible could be seen as sweet, sweet karma. And number 1. Laurie Strode is hit by a car, Halloween 4. Laurie Strode is undeniably that bitch. She's strong, determined, clever, and survives the nightmare that is Michael Myers time and time again. She even survives the ridiculously complicated Halloween timeline, coming out on top once again in the recent 2018 Halloween. It wasn't always the case, however. Halloween 4 brought the shape back into the frame after the disastrous attempt to do something new with the franchise in Halloween 3. Viewers were excited to have him back, and were perhaps even more excited to see how his battle with Laurie Strode would develop this time around. Well, about that. Prior to her return in Halloween H2O, Laurie Strode was killed off from the series, but not via a death at the hands of Myers, which could really be the only way for her end to be satisfying for audience members. Instead, it's an off-screen car crash that gets her. For a character so badass, this is such a boring and arguably pathetic death. Let Laurie die all guns blazing, I beg. Laurie does meet her maker a total of 3 times throughout the Halloween franchise, so there were shots at redemption, even if some of those on-screen deaths were just as insulting. And that's our list. What off-screen horror deaths were just too much for you to bear? Let us know down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe and swing on by our channel again if you want to catch more creepy content. I've been Tilly and this has been What Culture. Thank you so much for watching and make sure to keep on looking after yourselves. Until next time.